In the lead up to the Phoenix Suns Christmas Day matchup against the Dallas Mavericks, both Frank Vogel and Damian Lee told Suns fans, "We're close, stick with us, things are coming together." And then they lost another familiar game. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, were there signs of life? And why did it collapse once again? Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcasts. A big thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen. Here on a Tuesday, we are out of the holiday weekend. We are back to business as usual, and it is time for more Suns talk. So if you are finding us for the first time, hit follow or subscribe wherever you're finding the show. We appreciate you being here. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. Just hit follow or subscribe wherever you're finding the show. Get a new episode in your feed Monday through Friday, each and every week, all season long. Become an everydayer and get locked onto the Suns right along with me every day. Today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right. A lot to get to. The Suns lost 128-114 on Christmas Day, although calling it day almost feels like incorrect. Christmas night, very late. The game ended after 11 o'clock local. It ended after midnight in Dallas. I don't... Sometimes the Christmas Day schedule, it's like, could we do one less game? But the Suns were on the wrong end of it regardless. They had an opportunity at home, no Kyrie Irving on the other side, and an opportunity to get right. And they had a chance. They were up 1, I believe, heading into the fourth quarter. Lose by 14. Very familiar to any Suns fan who has been watching this team for any length of time this season. But we're going to zoom in on the fourth quarter. I know nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to do that. But the reality is that is when this thing got away from the Suns. And I want to go through a few of the familiar numbers to start, all right? The Mavericks shot 68% from the field. The Suns, and 4 of 8 from 3, I should point out. The Suns turned the ball over 6 times, and we're 1 of 8 from 3. Okay? Dallas was out-rebounded most of the night. On the whole, the Suns had 47 rebounds to just 38 for Dallas, but in the fourth quarter, Dallas had 11 rebounds. The Suns had just 6. Dallas was able to get 3 of its 8 offensive rebounds in the fourth quarter alone. A lot of familiar numbers there. 8 free throw attempts for the Mavs compared to just 3 for the Suns. I mean, all of these things, when you look at 37-22 in terms of the point totals, it shouldn't be a surprise. But those numbers are exactly where things went wrong. Here's the deal. I tweeted these clips, right, where the Suns are the 2 mistakes that I thought were the most indicative of their problems. But I want to say first, I think that there was progress in this game, all right? I don't want to just spend the whole podcast hammering them on the same exact things we've seen over and over and just doing the same podcast that I've done several times in a row now. You know, I know the audio audience, I know you guys are fading on me. The YouTube is there. I hear that Suns fans are frustrated. I was venting to my wife driving back to our house from my parents' house on Christmas Day when the Kevin Durant report came out, and I was dreading the game to a degree, and I just, I feel it is my point, all right? And so I'm not going to do the same thing, and I want to get that out of the way. And I will talk about some of the progress that we saw, whether that was players, whether that was some stylistic things that I'll walk through, and even some leadership steps that I think we saw this team take, okay? But I tweeted the 2 clips about the defense that I think highlight what went wrong. One was the Luka Doncic 3 on the right wing in transition a few minutes into the quarter that cut the lead to 1 at 102-101 Suns. That 3 was in transition, as I said, off of a single high screen by Dante Exum, and Luka just walked into a 3 after Grayson Allen got caught up on the screen. And he fought through it fine. Like, he sort of had a hand in Luka's face, but he's a few inches shorter than Luka, and Luka was hot, and it was a rhythm 3. But it wasn't Grayson's fault. That 3 happened because, as you can see in the highlight, if you go back and watch the clip on my Twitter or on any of the highlight videos, I'm sure that shot was in there because it was a big one. Eric Gordon and Jase Medical are pointing around, trying to get on the same page as effectively. It looked like they both were trying to guard Derek Lively. Now, I don't exactly know what the matchups were supposed to be, but in that type of a case, it kind of doesn't matter, right? Because if you see somebody on his way to 50 points who has been killing you with 3s, pull-up 3s all night, and you know he's been looking to take them in transition, you just find him. You see a high drag screen by anybody on that team, and you see Grayson needing to fight through that, and you can foresee there's going to be an opportunity for Luka to take that shot, you just run and go get a hand in his face. So even if Dante Exum, who set that screen, is not your guy, right? You just go. But instead, it's pointing fingers, it's miscommunication, and Luka gets that shot to go in. Later on, I posted a clip of Derek Jones Jr. on the short roll getting a finish at the basket that extended the lead around the 4-minute mark or so, something like that, to 9 points. I think it was 115-106. The Suns were stuck at 106 for a while. But defensively on that particular shot, you had Jones. And look, this was a lineup where you have to give some credit to Dallas. They sort of recognized the opportunity to go for the kill shot, and they did it. Seth Curry didn't even take a shot in this game, but his presence out there required the Suns to guard him, spread the floor for the pick and roll that the Mavs were running. And even when they weren't using Lively as the screener, which you would think, and they had him in the dunker spot along the baseline, the Suns still didn't have enough resistance because Hardaway and Curry were out there. Luka was just a master as a passer last night, and that put the Suns on their back foot, and again in that clip allowed Derek Jones Jr. to catch the ball, get all the way to the basket, and the Suns did not tag him on the roll. He gets to the basket. Durant is there, doesn't put up much of a fight or even foul him, and Durant only ended the game with 2 fouls, so it wasn't as if he's playing with 5 and needing to be cautious. And there were tons of plays like that where, yeah, you don't want to help from the strong side where Booker was and leave Tim Hardaway Jr. open to stop Derek Jones Jr. I guess at the end of the day, you're fine with him making you eat that. But the bottom line is the ease with which Dallas was able to get what it wanted, the lack of recognition by the Suns to stop what was working, led to that 37-point quarter. On the other end, the turnovers once again killed them. I mentioned they had 6. Durant had 3 of those. Grayson Allen had 1. Eric Gordon, I don't know if he actually logged 1. I can check it. I have the box score open. Gordon did not get 1 counted against him, but I believe he had 2 shots or 2 passes where he threw it and it bounced off of a Mavs player and went out of bounds, but they were not direct passes. And then Josh Okogie had an errant pass early in the quarter that technically deflected off of Metu, but really was Okogie's fault because he was not getting his 3-ball to go down and kind of panicked and tossed a bad pass to Metu. So it was familiar. But again, They had a chance to win this game, which is better than you could have said against even the Blazers in the fourth quarter, let alone that Kings game. And I think a lot of that had to do with Devin Booker. So I want to get to him, what we saw from him on the court, and the increasing presence that he is trying to occupy off the court as a leader, and what that tells us about where this team's at. Next. First, today's show brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks that you can find anywhere each week all season long. So, whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Jalen Johnson. He's been out for a while, 13, 14 games, but he may have been dropped in your league, and he should not have been. Make sure you grab him now as he's coming back, going to start. He's been the biggest bright spot for that Atlanta team. Jaden Ivey finally getting minutes in Detroit, producing. Isaiah Hartenstein starting in place of Mitchell Robinson, who is out for the season, likely to be the permanent starter in New York. Taurean Prince, he gets shots up. He starts for a good team with LeBron James feeding him shots. He is a producer, an innings eater. And then Dante Exum. Look, I want to speed right past Dante Exum, who helped dismantle the Suns on Christmas night, but he is starting, and it sounds like he will continue to start for the foreseeable future. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, and it's the same with your vehicle. I've bought numerous things from eBay Motors, as I tell you about time and again. The sunshade flap on the driver's side of my car, which the Arizona sun killed. The wheel cover, the thing you screw over your tire on the front driver's side as well, after it rolled off on a trip to Footprint Center a few months back. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly with brake kits, LED headlights, whatever your baby needs. Roof rack bumpers, eBay Motors has it. With eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or get your money back. Plus, with these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash, so keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, let's keep it rolling here on Locked On Suns. 128-114 was the final score, but let's zoom in on Devin Booker for our big takeaway from tonight's game, all right? Or last night's game. Because what Booker showed on and off the court, I think, was really telling of where this team is. It got a lot of attention that Booker and Durant both took so few shots. And that's perfectly fine with me. I get the criticism. It's not a winning strategy long term. But I thought in the fourth quarter, of anything that went well, it was Booker's aggressiveness looking to score. Got to the free throw line, got a floater to go in, took a pull-up three in this stretch, and it felt like the level of fight that you would want to see. Now, that might sound like I am just buttering him up or being a homer or whatever. That's why I started with ripping into them for what happened in the fourth quarter. I know, ripping. I don't yell or anything, but you just heard me criticize them. All right, so I'm not making excuses here, but I'm trying to be honest and to also give the reminder that I do think this game was a sign of progress, even if it doesn't feel that way. And some of what Booker was doing in that quarter was an example of that. It felt like he was in rhythm a little bit more, and I think a lot of that had to do with the flow that their offense had. And you can be upset, but it did. I mean, it did, right? Grayson Allen had a huge game. Chimezie Metu had a huge game. I'll talk about the three-pointers to close out the show in the next segment. The team was getting those up. They were playing more coherent playground basketball than they have in a while. And that's what they want to do, right? They are going to run some sets. They are going to have some structure. I think when Nurkic is out there, even more so. But there were a lot of plays, and Allen had a lot of them, where read and react is the name of their scheme, right? Like, that's their scheme. Whether you like it or not, that's how this team was built. And, there was the play where Booker passed up the layup to take a Grayson Allen shot and to pass to Grayson Allen for an open shot. There were a couple of those moments with Gordon where he ended up throwing a bad pass where he had a shot that was open, and the flow was better. They had 28 assists, but to me, if you were to look at like the number of passes, I would imagine that was higher. And everybody, I would say the shot quality in this game was just better than it's been in a long time. To stay on the court for a second, though, before we move to off the court, what I think we're realizing is the ultimate place that this flow and this offensive scheme needs to get is for the ball movement, the reaction and the reads to be at or above where they were on Christmas, but for those plays to end with a shot for the best players. Frank Vogel said this postgame. An ideal possession for the Suns might start with Booker and Durant, then involve a high level of IQ and ball movement decision making, and then also then end with a shot for the best players. And that brings me back to the pull-up three that Booker took in the fourth quarter. There's no way around this. I've been talking about this since I have been hosting this show solo for the past basically just over 3 years now. In order for Booker to be the best version of himself, because he is not an athlete on par with, Ja Morant or Anthony Edwards, because he is not the, passer of Luka or LeBron or Harden or whoever you want to point to. And because, frankly, he's not as big as, obviously, some of those guys I just listed, or, of course, Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid or Giannis, he has to keep the defense honest by taking the shots that are given, even if they're difficult, which often is going to be a pull-up three. And with how he's guarded, it's going to look like the pull-up threes that Luka takes, the pull-up threes that Damian Lillard takes, the pull-up threes that Steph Curry takes, where it's not even open. Contested pull-up threes are going to be the way for he himself to keep the defense on its toes. Because what we have seen lately, if you are paying attention, is even as the Suns have struggled, even as they have lost some ugly games, Booker has kept his turnovers low during this stretch. He had that 7-turnover game against the Lakers. Since then, he's only had one game of 5 or more turnovers, and that was the game against Washington a week and a half ago. Honestly, even on the whole season, he has only had 3 total games with 5 or more turnovers. 4. The Spurs game when he came back from injury too early in the beginning of the season. The Grizzlies game where he was kind of having to do it all. That Wizards game and that Lakers game. He's talked a lot this year about making the right play, and he's doing that. But what that ends up resulting in is 22 shot attempts for Grayson Allen, 18 shot attempts for Chimezie Metu, only 11 for Durant, and only 14 for himself. Right? 3 role players took more shots than Kevin Durant last night. 2 role players took more shots than Booker did, and those were Allen and Metu. On the court, aggressiveness for Booker looks like taking pull-up threes. Making the right play might be better than a turnover, but it might not be enough to win these games. Off the court, well, I wouldn't even say off the court, but non-athletically, like things he is doing as a person, as a leader, I think we're headed in the right direction with Booker. I think if you are a Suns fan and you are watching what Booker has been doing since that Portland, let's say since the Portland game, but especially in the lead up to this game, the comments he had in practice on Christmas Eve, how he handled himself on the court on Christmas, and post-game after the Christmas game, he is responding like the cornerstone of a franchise should. Okay? He was heard on the broadcast calling out Jase Medical for a turnover. You could see him in timeouts, in breaks in play, digging into his teammates a little bit, but also communicating during multiple free throw breaks with Durant, with Eric Gordon, trying to figure out what was going right, what was going wrong, what needed to be fixed, what they were going to run the next time down, all sorts of things. And a lot of the time you could see that progress be made. He was also the guy. There was a loose ball that he dove for late in the game. There was the chase down, hustle back on defense that, of course, he wasn't going to block Luka on the run out shot when Metu had that turnover when the mic caught him criticizing Metu. But the point is, he was demonstrating and feeding into what he is demanding of his teammates. I thought defensively, while Booker is far from a game-changing defender, even at his best in terms of a team defender, he had opportunities against Luka that he handled fine, as well as anybody. For a guy who had 50, I didn't feel like Booker was sticking out like a sore thumb. He was executing. He was helping. As much as a 6'5" guy who is not an elite defender can do, I thought he was demonstrating what needed to happen for the team to get past this slump. And then post-game, he was pretty pointed, right? His tone, his words, everything you would have seen from Booker in that post-game situation gave off what you would want to see. That only goes so far. I pointed out, making a pass is not always the best play. Aggressiveness looking to score means taking those contested pull-up threes, even if they're not comfortable. He still had some moments where he allowed the offense to break down. I am not here to defend Devin Booker after another double-digit loss and a late-game collapse. If he was truly doing everything you would want from your best player, they probably would have been winning more of these games lately. But as far as looking to turn the page, get over the hump, I think Booker demonstrated as a competitor and as a leader some fight that without that, nothing's ever going to get better. Let's close the show with some rapid fire on threes, pace, and a breakout role player next. First, today's show brought to you by the Gametime app, the best place to buy a ticket. Gametime is the fast and easiest way to buy a ticket for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with their last-minute deals, all-in prices, and view from your seat, plus a best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. What I love the most personally are the lowest price guarantees and the similar ticket protection that you can get. Basically, if you find a seat in the same section and row, Gametime credits you your money back. And with the view from your seat, you can check out what your view will be straight from the app rather than guessing or wondering or having to look it up elsewhere. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. You can find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you also can pick the section, and Gametime gives you your seat, allowing you to save even more money. So, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's close out the show. The Phoenix Suns might have a new role player on their hands, somebody that they can trust. That's Jase Medical. 23 points, 19 rebounds, 9 of 18 from the field, and some inconsistency remains on defense. But for a team that is simply looking to solidify a rotation and find guys who consistently put in effort, he has more than earned himself an opportunity. Jusuf Nurkic, the Suns said he'll be back with the team on Tuesday as I'm recording this, and apparently will be, you would think ready to play then Wednesday night against I believe they play the Rockets on the road, right? So that's good news in general, but I think Metu at this point probably just has to be the backup center. I mean, I know that I've said many times I don't think he's a center, but I also think the Suns have adjusted their approach with him to be more of a switch guy, to not always be guarding the opposing center, some of those different things. And that recipe seems to me to be working. So he's not so much of a negative on defense, and he's being put into position to succeed more. But the other thing we saw from Metu last night, aside from some of those structural differences, were that he definitely competed on the glass. And, it's just about stacking up things that Frank Vogel and the coaching staff can be sure they are getting from you when they put you on the court, right? That's sort of that's the calculus, right? And so Metu, 6 offensive rebounds, 19 total. That's sorely needed for this team. And again, as I said at the beginning of the show, over the course of the whole game, the Suns really owned the glass, even though that went away in the fourth quarter as well. If you're going to get that from Metu, then some of the other stuff he doesn't bring becomes more palatable. But, honestly, it wasn't even just more of the same from him on offense. It wasn't like he just had a couple of nice finishes and got hot from 3. He was a big part of why their ball movement was better too. He on the short roll was he was making good decisions. He was processing the game pretty quickly, making the catch, knowing where he was going with the ball. Most of the time, he looked to be a playmaker in those situations, which is totally fine. I mean, that's what Jusuf Nurkic does. But eventually, could those turn into some finishes for points or drawing some fouls by, catching that ball, taking a couple dribbles and getting all the way to the basket? Maybe. I mean, the guy's talent is sky high. So offensively, we know what he can do. If he can have more positivity and stick with his own approach and not get so down on himself. I mean, this guy wears his heart on his sleeve in these games to a point where it's like, even as a viewer, especially if you're in the arena, you see it. It is just, it almost feels performative, and I don't, that sounds harsher than I mean it, but Metu is one of these guys where it's like he wants everybody on the team and the coaches to know he knows, right? I made a mistake. It's like, dude, this thing is in a bad place right now. We saw you. We all saw you make the mistake. Raise your hand, cop to what you did, flush that down the toilet, get back in the next possession, right? And it's like he wants to, it's just so overwhelming to him. But if he can start to get more consistent minutes, know what his role is going to be, stack up good rebounding games, good passing games, good scoring games, he'll develop the trust of these guys, and he will start to feel more comfortable. And I think yesterday could be a huge stepping stone for that, even if all the issues that I just listed off are still going to be there. 3-pointers. And again, Metu was a big part of generating some of these. The Suns got up 41. Locked On Suns Insider text alert subscribers saw pregame my keys to the game, which included threes, because Dallas gets up the second most as a portion of their total shots every night. They're second in the league in that, behind only Boston. Almost half of Dallas's shots come from 3 every night. In the Christmas game, more than half their shots came from 3, and the Suns kept pace with that. That's huge. That's really big time. Obviously, late between Luka and Derek Jones and Tim Hardaway, the makes ended up favoring Dallas, but still, the Suns made 14. It's not like they went crazy cold. The right guys took them. I mentioned Booker and Durant need to be taking more, but Eric Gordon got up 7, Chimezie Metu got up 6, Grayson Allen got up 17, and they went away from the Okogie thing. I think probably maybe a little too late, whatever. He only ended up getting up 3 and missed all of them, but if that's a different guy in the future, maybe it's, I just don't know. I'm not going to go on that tangent right now. Point is, they've emphasized getting up 3s. Suns fans knew they needed to, and it happened. Check that box. Keep it up. Last thing, pace. I thought obviously the half-court pace was much better. The passing, the quick decisions, the plan, all of that looked better. I do think it's true whether you agree or not. You got to be honest, and I think we saw a lot more execution when it came to that stuff. Transition-wise, though, it was also a pretty strong showing for the Suns. They didn't execute, or I guess they didn't make shots off of steals, but they ran off of steals. But the biggest thing was they ran off of live rebounds. So when Dallas missed, and especially because when a team takes a lot of threes, you're going to have opportunities with those long rebounds to push the pace, and they did. They ran on more than a third of the Mavs' missed shots, and they were able to generate 1.5 points per play on those, which is huge. I mean, that's the equivalent of like a dunk, And so they were able to really improve their overall offensive performance by doing that on a night where, they did still turn the ball over 15 times. They missed some of the threes that they did generate and everything else. Without that, this game probably got even uglier. That's progress. That is what we want this team to do. And so when you zoom out, even though it was another fourth quarter collapse, the half-court execution and flow was better. They got up more threes. They pushed the ball in transition more. They got steady performances from more players than they have in a while. And they owned the glass. Their turnovers were not crazy bad. These are a lot of things that went the positive direction from where they had been against a better opponent in Dallas than they have faced in a while. I think Dallas overall is a more difficult opponent to scheme for than the Kings, but you could feel differently. Washington, the Knicks, the Blazers, the Nets, the Mavs are the best opponent they've faced considering Luka was so hot, and they still managed to show some things in addition to what I think we saw from Booker and other guys in terms of communication and fight and everything else. I hope I'm not being naive to you guys, but I waited. I didn't record an episode at 1 o'clock in the morning like a lunatic, bleary-eyed and mad and whatever. Watched back the key moments, watched the whole fourth quarter, clipped up some stuff and tweeted it, took some notes, and I truly still believe this. So that's my thoughts on the game. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Well, tonight, Wednesday night, I guess. No, I'm going to do another episode between now and then. This is Tuesday's episode. You will hear from me one more time Wednesday. Check back for a game preview on the audio feed on Wednesday afternoon to get you ready for Suns Rockets, and then a recap of Suns Rockets after the buzzer on Wednesday night. Enjoy your Wednesday, and I'll catch you guys then.